Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. Your hosts today are Scott Barker and Jesse Mayshark, the founders of CompassKnox.com. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. The Compass Point podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Almost an Agreement. Almost an Agreement is a layman's attempt to get a handle on the workings in government and politics that we deal with every day. Check them out at almostanagreement.com or subscribe for free on your favorite podcast provider. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And now, here are your hosts, Scott and Jesse from CompassKnox.com.
Welcome to Compass Points, the podcast. It's a production of CompassKnox.com. We're here to talk about news, government, politics, business, anything that really catches our fancy on that has to do with Knoxville and Knox County. And I'm Scott Barker. I am co-founder, co-publisher, co-editor, and all-around flunky for Compass. And I am usually joined by Jesse Fox Mayshark, who is all of the above and more for Compass. But he is actually on assignment in lovely Greece, which is I am very envious, and you should be too. Greece is a beautiful country, and he is there and enjoying the sunshine and the blue Aegean Sea. And I was thinking about on the way over here to Barbarian Productions, where the Lord Seth Barber rules his production facility and does our work for us. I was thinking on the way over here that when I worked at the News Sentinel, and Jesse worked there too, our first editor we had was Harry Moscos. Many of you may remember Harry. Harry was he's a fantastic editor. Enjoyed working for him. He had some idiosyncrasies. One of them was, of course, Greece. He's from Greece, or not from Greece. He's of Greek heritage, and he always we always ran stories about the patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church when they ran international news there, because Harry wanted to make sure that we covered that. Back in the days, nowadays, there is no real international news in local newspapers, and it's a shame. That was kind of a fun thing. And another of his idiosyncrasies was the Elgin marbles. He was adamant that they should be returned from the British Museum to Greece, where they had been taken from the Parthenon in I believe the 1800s, and that was one of his passions. Harry, if you're listening, I know he's around. If you're listening, enjoyed all that, and hope your retirement's still going well. Anyway, Jesse's in Greece. You're stuck with me, and so this week I will be covering quite a few things that we reported on in the past week. One of the things we're going to talk about is a protest that's actually happening on Sunday, which is when this podcast launches. So you may be getting this right after this happens. But it's a protest against the participation of transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's being held in conjunction with the USA Cycling Road Pro National Championships, which wrap up Sunday. And we have a report. We previewed that last week, and so we'll talk about the issues surrounding that. Also, Knox County is launching a mental health court, and we'll kind of dive into the mental health court, what it does, what the hopes are for it, how it's being funded, all kinds of stuff to do with that. We'll also take a look at a centrist political movement called the Liminal Plan that has gotten underway in Knoxville, starting out with some folks from Knoxville who want to take this statewide and basically try to realign the state legislature with public opinion polls. So we talked to the founder of the Liminal Plan, and we'll report on that. We'll begin with some big changes at the Knoxville Police Department's Internal Affairs Unit. Actually, one of the many changes that Chief Paul Noel has brought in to KPD, and we'll be starting off with it. And first of all, before I start off with that, I want to thank Lord Seth Barber for being here and producing us. He also has his own podcast called Almost in Agreement, and he has honed his skills and employs them for the benefit of Compass Points. So thanks, Seth. And
I'm happy to do it. I appreciate what you guys are doing and my ability to practice my skills on you guys as well.
We love being guinea pigs. That's okay. Anyway, as I said, the KPD has made some big changes in its internal affairs unit. First off, the internal affairs unit is no longer the internal affairs unit. It's been folded into what's called the Office of Professional Standards. That was created, an office to review policies and procedures at KPD and also house the internal affairs function, looking at allegations of police misconduct, and it is headed up by a new deputy chief, Brooklyn Sawyers-Belk. That's another change there, and but the Chief Noel made some big changes there because it's it's kind of central to some of the reforms that he's wanted to bring to KPD and changing the culture of KPD. That's what he was kind of brought in to do, and this is part of that. It's drawing a little bit of some pushback, of course, as all change does. One of the things that he's done is he's taken away some duties of the Internal Affairs Unit, or what was formerly called the Internal Affairs Unit. They used to do background checks on applicants to KPD, and he's shifted that responsibility over to the personnel department, which is where applications go in to at the very first. So that's being done there. One of the things we talked to Chief Noel, and one of the things he talked about was how background checks for employee screening is a little different. It's not as cut and dried as what a lot of people think. One of the things that had been happening when it was under the Internal Affairs Unit was applicants would be tossed out. The applications just be rejected for some kind of minor inconsistencies or whatever. As and kind of an example of that might be if an applicant failed to tell KPD about a speeding ticket or a reckless driving charge from 4 or 5 years earlier when they were a teenager out burning up the roads. And in the past, when the Internal Affairs Unit had it, if that was omitted and they found it out, which they would, because then they would do a formal background check as well, and they'd be tossed out for lying. Noel has said he wants to take a more holistic approach, and this is the approach that that the FBI actually takes when in doing checks for security clearances. If you omit information, they find out about it, they'll ask you about it. Explain this. Why didn't you tell us, and what happened? And you do, and it's especially if it's a minor thing, then it's kind of no blood, no foul, and you can go on. And Chief Noel had said that he's much more interested in the overall character and aptitude of the applicants, rather than if they make an innocent mistake in their application or in the initial interviews and that sort of thing. So that's moved. That's caused a little bit of unease, to say the least, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But the staff has also been completely overhauled. The Internal Affairs unit, when it was a standalone unit, had a commander, it had an administrative assistant, and 3 investigators at the rank of sergeant and above, and at the rank of sergeant, and and now it's been 1 year since Chief Noel came on board at KPD. Now all of those positions have turned over except one. There is one investigator who is still there. Been a couple of retirements. The commander of the unit at the time and the administrative assistant both retired. 2 of the investigators were transferred to the patrol division, but one of them did not accept that transfer and made some noise by sending out a 2,000-page plus email to, or 2,000 not pages, 2,000 word plus email to her colleagues at KPD.
I mean, once you get over 1,000 words or so, it might as well be 2,000 pages.
Most of our stories on our website are 800 to 1,300 words, and so 2,000 words is a long thing. But and this was excuse me. Sergeant Amanda Bunch Darnell, who had been with KPD for quite a while, I think the last 5 years with Internal Affairs. But she was very critical of Noel's approach and some of the things that they had done. She was critical of. She asserted that investigations or that the discipline that the command staff and the buck-ins with Noel, the discipline was already predetermined in some cases when there were findings of employee misconduct, and also the shift in responsibilities and the shift to taking a more holistic approach to job applicants was a lowering of KPD standards. That she thought that they were going to end up admitting applicants to who go on to the academy, in that they would not otherwise approve, and so she made all of her complaints known, or I don't know if all of her complaints, but at least some of her complaints known in this. And as she resigned, she sent this out on her last day on the job, so she actually has left KPD. The reaction was interesting. Before the end of the day, which, as I said, was her last day, KPD launched its own internal affairs investigation into that incident. And
so I got a question on that, Scott. So is it's kind of the summation of the 2,000 plus word letter upon departure. Was she kind of expressing a concern that these new changes are going to make it less transparent or less maybe fair per se, as far as the predetermined outcomes kind of thing that you mentioned? Well,
definitely less. That it would be. She thought that would make things less fair, and so obviously to the transparency when the recommendation comes in to do one thing and the decision maker does another, there's the idea that there might be a lack of transparency because the decision maker doesn't have to, fill out all the information in an investigative file, which is what the internal affairs investigators do. They have a big, long file on these incidents.
Right. So, because I was thinking, like, going back and about a year ago when Noelle came in is when we had the report on all the different cultural issues that KPD was having, and Noelle made it very plain that was his intent to address those issues, mm-hmm. and this seems to be a logical process to address said complaints, but it also sounds like, at least from her point of view, that this may be a way to kind of hide it easier than the old version.
Well, I think that's her concern. I think that's fair to say. Noelle did, when we interviewed him, he, basically said, hey, the city, basically the mayor brought in an outsider. He came from the New Orleans Police Department where he'd been for 25 years. I don't know if, he had no experience at KPD, not in Knoxville. So, he said, she brought me in because I was going to do things differently. I'm going to make changes. And he made no bones about it, from the very beginning. I mean, even if he never opened his mouth, you knew that some things were going to change just because of the way that he was instrumental in a lot of reforms that had gone on at the New Orleans Police Department, which has been under federal oversight for rights violations dating back to Hurricane Katrina. So he was going to come in and make changes, and he acknowledged that, change is hard, and people, who've been doing things one way don't like to necessarily change and do it another way. And that was what he, thought that this was, more of a reaction to, was a reaction to the changes, and not necessarily the merits of the changes, the very fact that there were changes. Right. And, he said that, now he asserts that most of the officers, the vast majority of officers at KPD have embraced those changes. Of course, it's a command structure. It's, sometimes when people may not speak freely all the time if they don't like something. I don't pretend to know all the internal dynamics of KPD and but he is of the opinion that that it has been embraced by most officers, and so he also said that one of the things that investigators do when you get back to the disciplinary function of that with officer misconduct, the investigators investigate. I mean, that's what they do. They're supposed to do that. But he is the one, as the chief of police, who makes the decisions. And and he said, he's basically said that it's my decision to make. I am the one who is responsible, and if if you don't like it, it's my decision. And whether it jibes with the recommendations that the investigators make or not. And but one of the reasons that one of the reasons he launched that investigation, into Sergeant Bunch Darnell was kind of asking about that because it seemed kind of weird to me that okay, you've got a person who's leaving, who and then he said that the reason one of the reasons he did this was that in that email she divulged some personal information about KPD employees that was confidential, and got a copy of it. I could see where he would say that. The employees that were referred to weren't referred to by name, but one could easily. Right. I'm assuming that many, if not many KPD officers knew who that person was or knew who those people were. Right. And by the other information that was given, and that was basically one of those things where we if KPD is ever sued over something like that or whatever, they've got documentation if they were going to do something, even though they couldn't discipline Sergeant Bench Darnell because she was gone, and that it's on the record that they were looking at that, and also that they said when you're a police officer from the first day to the last day, and you're expected to to do the right thing the entire time, and that if an officer used excessive force on their last day before they left, they would be investigated as well, and so that was that. He said it wasn't a punitive thing, but that's and those were the reasons why he investigated. Now the one thing that is, as I'm sure there have been a couple of other complaints about some of the things that Chief Noel has instituted at KPD. I'm sure there will be more as he moves forward. They've got the bystander training that they're doing. One of his goals is to kind of nip problems in the bud so there isn't officer misconduct, and that's where the bystander training comes in, and that's filtering out now. The initial round of people have been trained, and they're going to be training others, and so there are going to be more changes coming down the pike. Probably some of them will probably be painful to some at KPD, and we'll be keeping an eye on all of those as they move forward. We will move on from law enforcement now to politics, and last week there was the launch of a new political movement, statewide movement in Knoxville, and it's called the Liminal Plan. It's a word that a lot of people don't encounter every day, but the Liminal Plan is basically a movement of the center, and it's a kind of put together to try to get the state legislature to align the bills that they pass with the sentiments of the public, and it is formed by a local attorney here in Knoxville named Chloe Akers. A lot of people may remember her. She was very outspoken when in the wake of the Dobbs decision, when the Tennessee's abortion ban was put into place, and she and Amy Gibson, who is she has in the past worked at the Baker Center at the University of Tennessee, and then Will Karn, who's a political consultant. They are all kind of getting together and doing this. It's they're hoping to be able to make a difference in the state legislature to come, and they actually had a as you would call it, a launch party last Friday at the Mill and Mine. But Jesse had sat down and talked to Chloe Akers prior to this, and had a really good report on what they wanted to do. The liminal plan. By the way, I mentioned the word liminal. It's not very encountered very often by folks. A liminal space is kind of a transitional space, like a doorway or something like that. That's kind of how it's usually characterized. And so this is a movement that hopes to occupy that transitional space in our state government, as Akers put it. As I mentioned just a second ago, they believe that the legislature is out of touch, and they're focusing on three issues now. They're not focusing on everything, but they're focusing on three issues where they see that the legislature's not tracking with the opinions of Tennesseans as expressed in polling, quite frankly. But those three issues are Medicaid expansion. Tennessee is one of only 10 states now that has not expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, and they would, if Medicaid expansion were to occur, it would provide access for hundreds of thousands. I think I don't know what the number is now, but it's over 300,000 Tennesseans to health care coverage or health insurance coverage, and Akers pointed out that 63% of Tennesseans want to see Medicaid expansion, but the legislature, which has a Republican supermajority, and so you can't, essentially nothing passes without the full support of the Republican Party, Republican legislators. The Republicans have consistently resisted calls to expand Medicaid. They did so even under former Governor Bill Haslam, who's a Republican and who tried to find a way to expand Medicaid in a way that would be palatable to his more conservative Republican colleagues, and that failed. And but Akers is of the opinion that that if the legislators would just listen to the people, as they say, would that could change. Another issue, and this is the issue that got her kind of involved in the political realm, was abortion. When the abortion bill passed, she did a dive into, as I said, she's a lawyer, and she basically dissolved her practice to do this. It's how much she believes in it. But as an attorney, she wanted to know more about the abortion ban because there were possible criminal charges to come of it. Wanted to know what she would need to do if she ever had to defend someone, and was quite frankly taken aback by the way that there were no exceptions to the abortion ban. The only concession to there was any kind of moderation on the ban was an affirmative defense that providers could use if they were charged criminally. It's not an exception. It's just right.
That's essentially, I'm pleading guilty, but I had a good reason for it. Maybe not pleading guilty.
Not pleading guilty, but
I admit to the crime.
I did it. I did perform an abortion, but I had a good reason for it. And they still would have to hire a defense attorney, go to court, and justify that.
Right, and then they have to go and protect their practice license.
Yes,
which the state has oversight on, which could put them in a separate set of jeopardy in the process.
Yeah. Well, but one of the things that when Akers was looking at that, she noted that 69% of Tennesseans support, and this is what the polling is saying, 69% of Tennesseans support access to abortion care up to 16 weeks of pregnancy. And the general standard, for those who aren't familiar with it, the general standard before was 22 or 23 weeks. Before Roe versus Wade was overturned in the Dobbs decision last year, and it's been 1 year. The 1 year anniversary was on Saturday, as a matter of fact. The 75% of Tennesseans, 3 out of 4, think that there should be an exception to an abortion ban in cases of rape, and incest. And in Akers' perspective, the very fact that there aren't exceptions like that, and that so many people support abortion, should be reason enough for the legislature to revisit the issue and change the law on abortion, and now, of course, with the demise of Roe versus Wade, there is a it's all up to the various states. Tennessee, there's a ban. Women in Tennessee essentially have to travel to other states. Last Thursday had Planned Parenthood of Tennessee and North Mississippi had a press conference with some partner organizations where they talked about that. The head of a clinic in Carbondale, Illinois, was speaking, and it is Carbondale, Illinois, is about a little bit over 200 miles northwest of Nashville, and about the same distance due north of Memphis, and they are getting inundated with women from Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi, all of which have abortion bans in place. Women coming there to access abortion care in East Tennessee. Women have been going to Virginia and North Carolina for abortion care, and it's one of the things that that is really become an issue. Some states have even tried to ban travel for to obtain abortion care, and
that can't be constitutional.
I would think it's not, but it hasn't been tested yet. Generally speaking, a state border is not like a national border.
Right.
State in the state you have, in Tennessee you can travel freely. In the United States you can travel freely between states. With no, you don't have to show your Tennessee passport when you go to Kentucky. And vice versa, and also when you do travel to another state, you generally you have to abide by the laws of that state. And for example, if someone travels from Tennessee to New York, and this has happened, and they take a firearm with them, they could get in trouble because New York has pretty strict firearms carry laws. And vice versa, people from New York come down to Tennessee and start wearing them on their hip, and they weren't able to do that in New York.
I do this, when I always talk about we can go to Nevada and gamble like crazy.
Yeah, and
we can come back with our gambling winnings into Tennessee, and Tennessee can't do anything to stop that.
Right, even though casino gambling is illegal in Tennessee. The state of Tennessee can't stop you from bringing back your winnings from Nevada. In fact, they probably hope that you actually win when you go to Vegas and come back and spend
some stuff.
Spend the money here, and you don't. They don't want you to go to Vegas and lose.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other issue that the Limited Plan is focusing on is gun safety. Of course, that's. Governor Lee has called for a special session on that, the legislature on that, and a lot of that was primarily driven by the school shooting in Nashville, Covenant School shooting earlier this year. The Acres points to fact that 88% of Tennesseans want to see universal background checks on every single gun purchase that's made, and that 70% want what were called red flag laws. That's where you can petition a court if there's a reason that someone evidence that a person is could present a danger to themselves or to others with a firearm, that they could petition the court and have them prohibited from possessing firearms for a time. The red flag laws generally opposed by most in the legislature as well. One of the so those three issues, Medicaid expansion, abortion, and gun safety, are the ones that they're focused on. as I said, they had a launch on Friday. They're going to be raising funds and raising awareness over the next few months. They're going to be lobbying the legislature. They're going to, and one of the things that they're going to do is try to follow through, and they're going to pick 15 legislative districts in the state after the dust settles from the legislative session, and support candidates in those districts. And those districts will be across the state. They're, basically 5 in each grand division, if you want to look at it that way. And they would support candidates who were centrist in nature and who agreed with them on those issues, and try to impact the election next year.
All right, so I'm going to interrupt and I'm going to expand a little bit on this, and I'm going to start off with a disclaimer that I am under the employ of Compass. I am not part of Compass, and so my statements do not necessarily reflect the attitudes and decisions of Compass and who they are and what they do. But to me,
I don't like you either, Seth.
But to me, as a more opinion-based show that I do, is at least the top 3 issues to me sound very left, at least Tennessee left. Like your Gloria Johnson's running these things, your Virginia Couches and those in the past that have run for different House seats here in Knox County or at least East Tennessee that I've interviewed on my show, or you guys have done stories on running for seats to represent us. Those are issues that have been top issues for the local left for a while. And so as much as they're presenting themselves as centrist, at least in the East Tennessee view that I understand it seems like this is at least a left of center core issue.
Well, it's certainly left of the Republican majority in the legislature,
right?
Yeah, obviously. Now, whether you want to say it's left on the big picture thing, like for Medicaid expansion, you could say that's left. But then again, the whole Affordable Care Act, for people who are really on the left,
right?
The Affordable Care Act is a very centrist thing. People who are on the left want, at
least a single payer system or
a single payer system.
Right?
Yes, and we'll go to abortion. People, on the left, completely, unrestricted right to abortion as was in place before Roe was done away with, and and this is, if they with the statistics they pointed out, if they wanted to say, okay, you can ban, a bill that would ban abortions or allow abortions up to 16 weeks, that's a compromise from
the complete ban versus
complete ban.
Right.
And on gun safety too, I think you go they're not talking about banning assault weapons, and they're not talking about gun registration and things like that are more that are more on the far left. And so I think that yes, it is to the left of the
right. On the spectrum that is
of the spectrum of if you're in if you look at the state legislature, yes, this is on the left, but it's actually it is, you may even say it's left of center, but it's certainly not to the far left, which is are much, it's a much different animal, and it's not right. Really the far left is never really had much, even when Democrats controlled the state legislature and controlled the governor's office for much of the time. Tennessee's always been a fairly centrist state up until fairly recently. Right. Basically, you had conservative Democrats and moderate Republicans, in the legislature, and now, the Republican supermajority, especially in the leadership, is pretty conservative. So,
all right. And so, one more question I had on the liminal plan. We talked on your guys' show a couple weeks ago about the lack of polling and the lack of availability on polling on issues. I think we were talking about the stadium at the time. Does the liminal plan plan on doing any polling on their own, or are they going to use existing polling for the most part?
Well, we didn't ask them that, or at least I don't. As I said, Jesse was the one who reported it. He's not here. He could weigh in from Greece, but we're not live. We're recorded. I don't think he asked that. I think he would have reported that if he asked it. And one of the key differences, though, is there's a lot of polling that gets done statewide.
Right.
And that's what the
statewide issues.
The liminal plan is looking at statewide issues and statewide impact. And there is polling that gets done that way. When we were talking about things like the stadium, local polling is very rare.
Right.
It's not unheard of, but polling's expensive. And so on local issues, it's very rarely done. I think the Knoxville Area Association of Realtors did an early poll on the stadium, for example. And found that most of the respondents were in favor of it. I don't remember what the methodology was. I don't remember how rigorous it was. I think that it probably was a pretty decent one, given that they've got Hanson Sale as the government relations person, and in fact, it is no longer the Knoxville Area Association of Realtors. I should say, just last week they announced that they were changing their name to the East Tennessee Realtors. So that was something we reported in our newsletter, which you can also get if you subscribe to Compass at CompassKnox.com. Little self promotion there. Anyway,
plug it when you can. You always got to do the plugs.
But Hanson Sale he worked at the Baker Center, was and understands polling and that sort of thing. So I would imagine that the poll was a pretty decent one. But for the most part, local issues don't get polling consideration. So. But anyway, we will be following the liminal plan, of course, to see. I think that they, it's going to be tough in the state legislature with the makeup of it for them to get a lot of traction. But we will keep an eye on them and see if they do. So we will shift now from politics to the court system, the justice system, and. Last week, criminal court clerk Mike Hammond gave a presentation to County Commission on a new court in Knoxville. It is a mental health court. It is designed to prevent people or give people the opportunity to go into treatment for mental health issues instead of going to jail. It's kind of based on, the structure is based on the drug court that Knox County already has. The mental health court kind of does the same thing for people with mental health issues as opposed to substance misuse issues. It's something that has been talked about for a while. Mayor Jacobs has kind of pushed this quite a bit. And a group that looked into it that included included Hammond, District Attorney General Sharm Allen, Public Defender Eric Ludden, Judge Chuck Cerny, who's the criminal sessions judge here, and they looked at other jurisdictions. They looked at both inside and outside of Tennessee, but came up with a formula for implementing the drug court here that's in accordance, obviously, with state law. It will be the eighth mental health court in Tennessee, in the last of the four major counties to implement one. It's one of the things that they had to hammer out when they did this was, kind of how defendants would get into this system and what would happen to them once they were in, how all this would be adjudicated. And one of the driving forces behind this is as Sheriff Tom Spangler has pointed out, he asserts that the county jail is the county's largest mental health facility. Estimate that about 30% of the inmates have mental health issues. And it's to keep people with mental health issues. If that's what got them to in arrears with the law, then treat the mental health issues and don't send them to jail. And the kind of process for this, would kind of start with your defense attorneys. The defense bar has to kind of initiate this, and will have to be informed on this. And those who are familiar with drug court will understand how this works. But if they have a client who would they think would be a good candidate for this, had diagnosed, and that's key, diagnosed mental health issue, and a pretty big one like schizophrenia and other kind of psychotic issues, that they would propose that person go through drug or mental health court instead of the regular court. And so that there will be a case manager with the mental health court who would screen the potential defendant. The District Attorney General's office would look at. They would take into consideration what crime they're charged with, their criminal background, try to determine, yes, if their psychological disorder is what drove them to committing this particular crime. And then this is one of the things that General Allen insisted on: the victims, if there are victims, the victims agree to it. And if all that aligns and the defendant agrees to it, then they go onto this docket that they will have. It's really key that they are able to agree to it. Competency is a big issue. This is not the same as pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. This is basically pleading guilty, but having a mental disorder and the mental health disorder, and they are part of it is they could get their sentences reduced. They could have have the diversion, the whole 9 yards. They still might have to spend some time in jail, maybe, but it's all done on a case-by-case basis, based on the crime, based on the circumstances, the way, within the parameters of sentencing and that sort of thing, just like any other case. But what's really different here is if they get into the program, they have to be go through treatment. It's a court-ordered treatment, and it lasts at least a year, sometimes up to 2 years, for them to go through this long-term treatment. They have to continually report back to the court. They have to stay in treatment, whatever that treatment is, for whatever illness this is. And they have to go through it. They have to complete the treatment. If it takes 1 year, they have to stay 1 year. If it takes 2 years, they have to stay 2 years. They have to complete the whole treatment and stay out of trouble. That's another key. They can't get arrested again and that sort of thing. Just like if they were on probation, they wouldn't be able to. That's one of those things. And the hope that Hammond and Cerny and the others expressed is that people would be able to, at the end of this period, once they've had treatment, would be able to stay on treatment beyond the court order period and become productive members of society who stay out of jail. And Hammond had pointed out that in Nashville, Metro Davidson County, where they have a mental health court, the success rate's 70 to 80% using that criteria. Completing the program and staying out of jail. 70-80% of the people who go through the court achieve that. Now, one of the things, obviously, whenever something new comes up, you say, well, what's that going to cost us? And the good news, I guess it would be good news, the state's paying for it, not the county, is the bottom line. The state, they're using $236,000 in state funding to get the program launched. It covers the expenses for the first year, and it will be. Hammond said that the Lee administration and legislators have promised him that these are going to be recurring dollars, so they're going to get $236,000 at least every year from now on to operate this program. That's going to pay for a couple of case managers to do that initial intake that I talked about and follow these cases through for about 30 defendants. The docket will be about 30, moving forward. Obviously, since this is a long-term thing, once they get to 30, they wouldn't be able to take any more unless they decide it's wildly successful and want to pay for more case managers and do that. But they won't need more. A lot of these cases would be handled by the public defender's office on the defense side. You don't need Eric Lutton, the public defender, says we won't need to get any extra people. We already defend people with mental health issues, and so we don't need any. We won't need any new people. Judge Cerny's already, he's already got his job. He's not going to have to. You don't have to get a new judge. Won't need to get new prosecutors. So really the primary added expense is are the case managers and then the treatment options, and they have several agencies on board already. Mox and Bend Mental Health Institute in Chattanooga, the McNabb Center, Cherokee Health, they're all on board. There are half a dozen others that are in there in talks with. So they're lining up this treatment stuff, and it gets started on August 1st. Really, other than the county commission has to do kind of a perfunctory approval, there's no indication that there would be any objection to it. I mean, they already approved some funding early on to do some of the studying that was gone on to establish the court. So anyway, it launches August 1st, and so that's when people who are charged with crimes and have mental health disorders can possibly avoid jail and get treatment. And now we'll move on to the last segment segment on our review of things that happened last week, and that is this whole idea of trans women athletes competing as women in sports. And this is kind of rode into town along with the USA Cycling Road Pro National Championships.
That might be the best pun I've heard all week.
What?
Rode into town.
Oh, well, sorry about that. Mea culpa. I shouldn't have said that, but
I love a good pun. You don't.
But it's a serious issue, and
you're right.
The should try to stay away from puns as much as possible. Anyway, the idea of transgender females participating in women's or girls' sports has been an issue. Tennessee has banned that, or there are penalties for schools, K through 12 schools that have that allow trans girls to participate in sports in Tennessee. So it's been an issue, but this is actually more of a national thing because this is an organization called the Independent Women's Forum. It's a conservative women's issues organization. They basically espouse a type of feminism called equity feminism, and that's kind of crudely put. It's they're for equality without blaming men for incidents of inequality. For instance, the wage gap isn't the fault of men. It's the women have chosen not to. Traditionally have chosen not to focus on their careers as much as men have, and so they get paid less. And there's a group that actually got started when during the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings back in the early 90s, 92, when he was nominated for the Supreme Court. They get funding from a lot of more conservative donors like the Olin Foundation and the Koch brothers, and so it's a very conservative group. They are dead set against trans women competing, and they're in town because of the bicycle championships. They want the governing bodies of cycling, the Union Cycliste Internationale, or ICU, if you don't want to hear me mangle a French accent, and USA Cycling. USA Cycling follows ICU's guidance and rules when it comes to races that could lead to international competition. In races that don't, basically your local races around USA Cycling says, race however you identify gender-wise. The ICU has a more rigorous standard. It's based on testosterone levels, and so if a male goes through gender-affirming surgery and treatment, they have to keep their testosterone levels below a certain point for 2 years. Now, when they talk about that, males have testosterone levels are measured in nanomoles per liter. You will not be tested on this, but it's nanomoles per liter. But you can get an idea by the numbers, though. Males tend to run between 9.2 and 31.8 nanomoles per liter. Females are only 0.3 to 2.4. The upper end of the general range on testosterone levels, there can always be women who have higher levels than 2.4, men who have lower levels than 9.2, all that. But those are the general ranges. And what the ICU did was basically say, if you are a trans athlete and you keep your testosterone levels under 2.5 nanomoles per liter, then you can compete as a woman. And anything under 2.5 is, by kind of definition, within that range. That's the upper end of the female range, but is in the upper end of that range. It is in that range. And that's kind of the rule. And getting to that, it requires being on estrogen and testosterone blockers for a time, and constantly over that 2-year period, because you have to be monitored, and they have to report the results and all that. So anyway, there are athletes and others, the Independent Women's Forum, who are opposed to anyone who's transitioned from male to female to compete as women because they believe they have an inherent advantage, the size of their body, I guess, muscle mass and such. All those things are actually affected by the hormone levels. Hormones do all kinds of things to your body, but they're going to be at this rally. A lot of athletes, former athletes, and current athletes will be speaking at the rally. They're couching this they're promoting it as a Title IX celebration, and Title IX is the federal law that basically is responsible for the explosion in women's sports over the past 50 years. It prevents discrimination based on sex for any program that receives federal funding, and for example, that is what has enabled or actually forced colleges and universities to field more and more women's sports teams that give them women more opportunities to compete, and that is one of the things that they're tying this into that, and as a result, this rally is going to be at the Pat Summitt Forum, or was at assuming that they had it today, will be at the Pat Summitt Plaza on the University of Tennessee campus. Pat Summitt, of course, is considered a hero of Title IX. So one of the things that has really pushed this is that it's been a big issue in the cycling world. Outside of Knoxville, outside of Tennessee, and especially recently, an athlete named Austin Kilps, who is a trans woman, was the first time a trans woman has won a staged race in New Mexico called the Tour of the Gila. But got a lot of attention there. Won a race recently in North Carolina. And will be and was scheduled to race in Knoxville on Sunday's national championship race, and a lot of people have raised concerns about that. The ICU, in fact, has said that they are going. At first they kind of defended their rules, and then they backtracked and said, well, we'll take a look at them again. And there are a lot of athletes who are a lot of women athletes who are opposed to this. Of course, I'm sure there are a lot of who who are fine with it, but some of the ones that will be speaking, one of note is a woman named Riley Gaines. She's from Gallatin originally. She was an All-American swimmer at the University of Kentucky, and she competed against a trans swimmer when she was in college. The first a swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania who was the first trans woman to win a national championship in swimming, and Gaines competed against her. Gaines has gone on now lobbies to keep trans women out of women's sports and girls' sports. She lobbied the state legislature when they were debating Tennessee's law. She's testified before Congress. She's going to be speaking there. And one of the reasons she's notable is another of the speakers will be Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. He was listed as one of the speakers. Talked to his spokesperson Mike Danilla about it. Danilla said that he was going to be speaking there in support of Gaines, of Riley Gaines, but he said wouldn't address it further. So don't know exactly his motivation behind speaking there. other than he apparently is, does support Gaines's position on that, which is trans women should not compete in women's sports. So this is one of the things we also did, and it was actually kind of eye-opening. I was able to talk to Darren Johnson, who works for the Tennessee Equality Project and kind of tracks legislation involving the trans community in Nashville. And Darren is also a certified USA cycling bicyclist competitor. Now, Darren is a little older than the ones who can compete in the national championships. There are USA Cycling has various levels, and they divide racers into their ability levels and age and gender. So there's all kinds of combinations there. Darren is, I believe, 53 and still races some, but gave some insight into the treatment regimen that you have to go through, what you have to go through as a trans athlete to compete. And one of the key things that she points out is that just because you were born male doesn't mean you have an inherent advantage. One of the funny quotes she gave was, I race too. I suck. I haven't won a race in years, and it's one of those issues that for the foreseeable future will be continued to be debated and argued about, and of course, like I said, this podcast goes out into the world on Sunday, the last day of these competitions. We'll see how Austin Killips finished, if she does finish in the national championship race on Sunday, and of course we've been following trans issues in Tennessee since we started 5 years ago, and we still will continue to do that moving forward. So that's kind of a review of the things that we covered last week at Compass, and we're going to take a little break now, and I'll be back in just a jiffy to talk about more stuff. Welcome back to Compass Points, the podcast brought to you by CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com, excuse me. That's the website to go to get to subscribe to our services. You get access to our website where these wonderfully put together in-depth news stories on Knoxville and Knox County can be found, and also a daily weekday newsletter with even more news and information for you. One of the things that you also get from a Compass subscription is the ability to be a member of our Facebook group, which is Compass Colloquy. That's where our readers can get together, debate, or talk about issues that they want to talk about. One of the things that we always do is we ask those folks at the Colloquy to if they have anything they want us to talk about on the podcast. And one of the suggestions this week was to talk about what's going on with the McClung warehouses. As many of you know, but it's been a while, so a lot of people who have recently moved here may not be aware. The McClung warehouses were warehouses dating back to the 1800s. They are located we're located downtown on West Jackson Avenue between Gay Street and Broadway. there had always been looked at as ripe for renovation and rehabilitation. They're beautiful buildings, highly visible from Interstate 40. But nothing ever happened with them. The owners never did anything with them, and had a couple of fires in, I believe, 2007 and I believe 2015, I think 13. Can't remember back that far. But destroyed them, and basically the city took over ownership of the property. Has talking about restoring what's left there, redeveloping the vacant area there, and been talking about it for close to a decade now, and at least since the city took over. And our one of our readers wanted to know, well, kind of what's up with it, and I was able to talk to David Brace, who's the deputy to the mayor, chief operating officer, and R.J. Justice, who is the assistant development director. And she and he talked about they don't have firm plans yet for it. I mean, one of the things that's happened, obviously we had COVID that took 2 years off just about every project that was looked at anywhere in the city, private or public. But also the state of Tennessee that replaced the Broadway Viaduct, and they used that area as staging for that large undertaking. That's over with now. The city has also had a couple of other projects that took higher priority. One of them was a public safety complex in North Knoxville, and city agencies are now moving into that. The Knoxville Police Department's just about moved in. The fire department's already moved in. The municipal court has moved in, so they're getting that underway now. That's also not completed yet. If you include the portion that they're going to put out for private development on the north end of that campus, where the original hospital structure is still there and has been maintained, but then they're going to be having the private sector come in and do something there. They're going to be doing that soon. There's also been that little baseball field they're talking about building in next to the old city that's taken up a little bit of their attention. And other kind of major projects that have really kind of taken all the bandwidth from the city. But Brace and Justice told me that the things should be moving on the McClung warehouses soon. They're going to be doing some public input. They're going to be talking to people about what they want to see at the warehouse properties, talk to people who live in the area, who work in the area, own businesses in the area, and talk about what would be feasible there, what would be desirable there. That's going to go on probably beginning this fall. They really didn't want me to pin them down on it, and so but they're going to be doing that this fall. And then possibly in the spring, they will issue a request for proposals, using the input that they get from the public in the fall, issue a request for proposals to redevelop that site. And so they have a goal of doing just that over the next couple of years. So that's the update. It's not there's nothing imminent that's going to happen with the warehouses, but hopefully there'll be more news coming up in the coming months about when the public input is actually going to start and how that's going to go about, and then over the next few years, if the city plans at least to get started on some sort of project redevelop those warehouses. Those were, they were important back in the history of Knoxville. Knoxville was a kind of warehouse capital of the Southeast. Back in the late 1800s, that was kind of what Knoxville was known for. They were beautiful examples of that, when we had these purely functional buildings that looked absolutely gorgeous, and people don't build them like that anymore, as they say. So anyway, we'll follow that and have more updates as the news warrants. And speaking of things that are coming up, we will be on the prowl again this week for news. There are a lot of public meetings where we will be dropping in. County Commission will meet on Monday. We will be there. There's not a whole lot of too exciting things on the agenda. One of the things that's going to be on there is a resolution to support changing the name of Clingman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I believe we talked about this last week. They're actually going to vote on it this week. The name would be Kuahi. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. That is a Cherokee name, meaning Mulberry Place. Members of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, want to have that name changed from Clingman's Dome to use their name for it. It was a sacred mountain to them, as most people know. The Smoky Mountains essentially divided the peak line of the Smokies, which is Clingman's Dome. It's the tallest mountain in the Smokies, tallest mountain in Tennessee, and it was kind of the dividing line between the Overhill Cherokees in Tennessee, and then the main part of the band in western North Carolina. So it's a sacred place to them. They had one of the representatives who has been pushed for the change, Levita Hill, was at County Commission's work session last week and talked about that. County commissioners are almost all on board. John Schoonmaker was a little reluctant. He was reluctant to and did not join as a sponsor the way the others did. He's worried about the changing the name, especially of the observation tower at the top. That's what people know it as, and tourists know it as that, and worried about the impact on tourism. And so, of course, that's not Knox County tourism. It's Sevier County tourism, and that's Sevier County. But that was one of the concerns. The Hill and her partner in this, Mary Crow, who's also a member of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians, they're out trying to drum up support. The Knox County Commission would be the first in Tennessee to support it. The Eastern Band's leadership supports this. There's some interesting precedent on that, and I'm going to go on an aside on this. Excuse me if I'm not moving quickly enough on the what's coming up this week, because this is kind of an interesting thing, because the precedent for this that everybody thinks about is Denali in Alaska. It was formerly Mount McKinley, and then they changed the name of. They expanded and changed the name of the national park it was in to Denali National Park. And everyone that I knew, and I will include myself, thought they actually changed the name of the mountain at the same time. Because everybody I know refers to it now as Denali and not as Mount McKinley. However, the name didn't change back in the 90s when they changed the name of the park. The name of the mountain was still Mount McKinley. It had been proposed to change the name, but politicians intervened, of course. The congressional leaders in Ohio, which was the home state of
President McKinley,
President William McKinley, blocked the name change year after year after year after year, until 2015, when the Secretary of the Interior under President Obama at the time said, "Listen, state or federal law, if the Board on Geographical Names, which is the authority that names mountains and streams and those kinds of things, if they fail to act, then I can act unilaterally." And she said it's been 40 years. I think they failed to act, and so she changed the name to Denali, and so now it is indeed Denali and not Mount McKinley, and so there's precedent for that. In fact, one of the there was another mountain in Yellowstone that was changed just last year. So what the process is you petition the Board of Geographical Names to change a name. They take a lot of things into consideration. One of the things they take into consideration is public sentiment, and that's one of the reasons that the organizers have come to Knox County Commission. Anyway. Other than that, there's, there will be routine business that goes on with the county commission. City council meets on Tuesday. City council, again, it's mostly routine business. They will be taking up the measure that would create a task force to look at establishing a program. There's an alternative response model for instead of law enforcement responding to calls involving mental health, this alternative response team would made up of a behavioral health specialist and an EMT or some other type of medic. KPD currently does it with a police officer and a mental health professional. So, but this has been pushed as a way to respond to these calls without a police presence. That proponents say the major proponent on council is Councilwoman Amelia Parker, although others are at least sympathetic, if not supportive of it as well. Police presence. Assert that police presence could lead to escalation. If you take the police out of the equation, it's a much more humane and safer way to go about doing this. So they're going to be voting on whether to authorize a pilot program or to authorize a committee to look to see whether to establish a pilot program, because it takes a lot of committees in government. So they're going to be talking about that. They'll be voting on that. The earlier in the day on Tuesday, the Sports Authority is going to meet again. They don't have a whole lot on their well, actually, I haven't seen their agenda yet. It's not out yet, or it wasn't at the time that we were taping this on Friday. But there isn't, from talking to some of the folks involved in the Sports Authority, there's not anything major on the agenda. That we'll be getting an update on diversity among contractors. They've been getting updates on that monthly, so they'll be getting that. The big thing it will be at the end of the week when the UT Board of Trustees meets for their annual meeting on Thursday and Friday. The board, that's when they approve the budget for next year. It's when they approve the capital plans. They'll be talking about how UT stacks up against their peers academically, financially, and otherwise, and also UT President Randy Boyd gets his performance evaluation. So most of us, if we have performance evaluations, they're done privately. Boyd's is done in public. So we'll be sitting in on that. That's going to be in Memphis. We're not going to go to Memphis. We will be watching that virtually, and we will be in contact with UT officials during the meeting for if we need more explanation and more information, and we will be reporting on all of those things next week. Again, at CompassKnox.com. And that will pretty much wrap it up for this week. Was able to make it through without Jesse, which is, I think, to my shock and to Seth's shock over there.
I think you did fantastic. We've done it before. We'll do it again. We'll do a Jesse only show at some point. I think it's.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If we do a Jesse only show, I hope it's when I'm in Greece or a similarly beautiful place. other than here.
Subscribe today to help
help
get that funding together.
Yeah,
so Scott can take his trip to Greece and London and whatever else is on Scott's bucket list.
GoFundMe is so crass. So here, I mean, if
you're getting something for it,
you're getting something for it. If it's GoFundMe, you just send me money and I'll go somewhere. Now, hey, somebody wants to set it up, I'm game. But if you subscribe to Compass and then in return you get in-depth news stories on issues in Knoxville and Knox County and our daily newsletter. So, but we're going to be headed out for now, and I want to thank Seth, our producer, Lord Seth Barber.
I paid good money for that title. I appreciate you using it.
Yeah, well, you need like a Lord Seth crest or something, to let people know about you. Anyway, thanks, Seth. Appreciate your help with the production. And if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to do this. And to you folks out there, we will come back again next week with another report on news and events in Knoxville and Knox County that we will be putting together this week at CompassKnox.com. So thank you so much, and see you next week.
Welcome to Compass Points, the weekly podcast for CompassKnox.com. CompassKnox.com is your best source for news and politics in Knoxville and Knox County. Your hosts today are Scott Barker and Jesse Mayshark, the founders of CompassKnox.com. You can find their daily in-depth coverage and subscribe at CompassKnox.com. The Compass Point podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Almost an Agreement. Almost an Agreement is a layman's attempt to get a handle on the workings in government and politics that we deal with every day. Check them out at almostanagreement.com or subscribe for free on your favorite podcast provider. If you'd like to learn more about the topics discussed on today's podcast, go to CompassKnox.com and subscribe for in-depth coverage and much more. And many thanks to William Wright for composing our theme song. Compass Points is a partnership of Barking Shark Media and Barbarian Productions, and recorded by Lord Seth A. Barber at Barbarian Studios, Knoxville, Tennessee.